I'm Leigh Brown. This is crazy shit in real estate, and today is a long episode, but you'll find out why in just a minute. So just hold on to your hat, enjoy the conversation. I've got Cheryl Sain for you today. She is the dirt girl. She called herself a dirt dog. She's amazing. You're going to really enjoy this conversation. So hang on, and I'll see you on the other side.
I'm going to try not look at my screen because my camera is right here and I'm getting used to this whole setup. I'm so excited. I got to show you something.
So you're talking to? Oh, you got your logo on a shirt. That's fancy.
I did. I said, I got to wear it for today. How are you doing?
Did you wear that to the educators conference?
I did not. I should have, but I didn't. I tried to dress professional because it was like a big gala thing. And, I dressed in a dress, but I'm starting to wear it more. I'm getting used to it. I'm not a marketing guru like you are, but I'm learning.
I mean, it's the easiest thing you can do. Just remember, we live in NASCAR country. You're just going to be the
That's
NASCAR
true.
of dirt education.
I have I will show you this. Hang on. I have a red dirt hat.
Oh, of course you do.
I call this my Carolina red dirt t-shirt, my Carolina red dirt hat.
I mean, that's going to trigger some people, but that's on them. That's not on you.
That's true. That's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, but you're right. You're right. Oh my gosh.
I hate that a red hat has turned into something that makes people like jump in a direction. Like it's just a red hat.
I know. And I love red because it's bright. That's why I did, a lot of stuff I have is red because it's easy to notice. So,
and it's a power color too. And obviously you're a powerhouse when it comes to dirt and land brokerage.
Well, I'll try.
No. We don't use the disclaimer. Are you, yes or no?
Yes, I am. I am an expert in what I know.
Actually, that's the approach most people should take is they're an expert in what they know, not in
That's
everything.
right.
So
yeah, that's what I tell my students too. I say, hey, I'm an expert in what I know, and so are you.
frankly, it's the main thing that I wish more licensees understood, that they don't know everything about real estate just because they got a license. There are a zillion different directions to go in, which is, of course, why you're here with me today. So why don't you tell our audience who Cheryl Sain is, where are you located, how long you've been in real estate, give them a little bit of the background.
Okay, and first I have to say thank you so much for turning me on to this. This has been a lifesaver. I just had one right before I started. I'm telling you, those things are the bomb.
We should go ahead and disclose to the audience, this is not a paid endorsement of Fisherman's Friends, but
no, this is not. But
we call it the speaker's friend. I don't know why it fixes that catch in your throat when you're talking nonstop. I don't need to know why, but it works.
It does work, and I'm getting ready to record my book on Audible next week, and I've already loaded up on some of these.
I'm so glad that you're recording your own book, though, because I despise listening to audiobooks that aren't narrated by the author, because I like to feel like you're with me with your content.
Yeah, I have. Well, let me back up. Because I'm a squirrel. I'll squirrel off on a whole tangent.
And obviously, I'll give
your audience an idea of who I am. My name is Cheryl Sain. I am the author of 10 Things You Need to Know About Land. Another book, which was a spinoff from that one for the general public, is How to Buy, Sell, and Profit with Land. And I'm an instructor. I have been in the industry for over 20 years, and I specialize in land. I also do residential so I can keep up with what, the normal residential agent is doing. And I am very, very passionate about teaching agents what they don't know.
And of course, you're located in the Charlotte, North Carolina
market. I am. I'm in the South Charlotte area, and I'm sorry for interrupting. South Charlotte area, in the Wesley Chapel area, Waxhaw, Weddington, Wesley Chapel, we're all together. I have 3 children, 2 Eagle Scouts, one's an engineer, one is going back into the military, and my daughter is trying to get into dental school right now. And I've been doing this since 2001. Yeah, and I love it.
That's crazy. How often does that happen in one family?
Oh, like 2, I don't know, because I'm Air Force. I'm an Air Force veteran, by the way. My son is a Marine veteran, but he's getting ready to go back into the Air Force in totally different career. He's supposed to leave here next month, I believe. Yeah. So
Well, now that's gotta be a rarity too, because you don't
It
often
is.
see people jump branches. What's making him do that?
He wants to be a combat controller, and, the Air Force is the best branch to do that in. And it's taken him about a year to get in. The physical training you have to go through just to qualify is amazing. I mean, oh my gosh, the swimming and running and push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups and all this stuff they have to do in a certain amount of time, and it's taken him a while to, even pass that, even though he's an amazing athlete, once he learned how to control it all, and he has to work out every day. He's, just unbelievably fit, so
I mean, I
he loves
admire
it.
the persistence it takes to see a goal like that that's got all the boundaries and all the hurdles in it and just
Yep.
to plow right through it. That's huge.
Yeah, he's really excited. He's older. He probably is because he's 28. He's probably one of the older ones to go into it because he didn't find out this was something he wanted to do until after he had gotten out of the Marines. So he's excited about that.
Funny that we have to talk about 28 like it's old, Cheryl, when you and I are just, medium-aged people of undisclosed numbers.
Yeah. I'm like, anytime somebody gives me a compliment, I'm like, yeah, I'll take anything at my age. I'm good.
I got carded the other night, and I knew it was just for kindness from the waiter, but I was like, "Thank you so much, you sweet boy. Of course, you
I know, I
get
know, I know.
in my reader zone so I can find you some money in my wallet."
Or when the younger guys flirt with you and you're like, I could be your mama.
Absolutely. Then we say, "Isn't it past your bedtime? You're gonna have curfew coming up here."
I know, I know, I know. Well, I am so excited that I'm on here with you. I love what you do. I've been listening to some of your podcasts to prepare for this week, and some of the stories, holy cow! I'm like, oh my gosh,
Is
these
it
are crazy.
I guarantee you listen to them, you're like, "Well, yeah, I that's crazy, but I got this one time." And I
Yeah,
think that's the interesting place about real estate that we all do the same professional thing, but it's not the same professional life. We never serve the same people. So all of us have this wild range of stories. And it's
we do.
kind of sad that HGTV never figured out how much more interesting real estate is than what they boiled it down to with house hunters and property brothers
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
more.
They could do a show saying, just title it, the SHIT you won't believe happens in real estate, real life stories to agent, and it could be a series for years because the stories are always revolving, and it's crazy the stuff. I mean, I have quite a few, and I tell some in my classes, and the students, they're like, we love the stories, we love the stories because it makes it a real life. Like I'm not just up there reading from a script. I'm like, well, let me tell you what I did and what was so stupid, and I'm so embarrassed to tell you, but I'm gonna tell you so you don't make the same mistake I did. So, and they love it. They just love it. So,
Well, and I do think that makes you one of the better instructors out there because the students do need to feel like they're in the lesson and they're in the story because once they get turned loose, they will be in the middle of it. And how do you come back from crazy scenarios and things you never expected or mistakes? Because we all make mistakes, and the question is never did you make it, but it's how do you come back from it? So you figure these pieces out along the way. And I'm curious, before you tell us the first of your stories, how did you land how did you land in the land
how to
part of
land and land. I'm
this?
glad you asked. So, and I'll try not to take up too much time. It's kind of a long story, but basically, I got into real estate in 2001. I was pregnant with my third child, and my husband at the time, which I'm not married, but my husband at the time traveled a lot, and he was gone like every week, and so I was there by myself, and I wanted to do. Um, Something that would give me freedom to because my kids were there's 3 years between my first 2 and 5 years between my second 2. So they were spread out. At one time I had 3 kids in 3 schools, and that was very difficult. But I decided I wanted to do real estate because I've loved sales my whole life and I love people and I love helping people. And I thought, what a great way to help people and get paid for it. As a matter of fact, the funny story was I was 8 months pregnant when I took my real estate exam in North Carolina. And I had studied so hard and it was so stressful. And I just broke down right there when it came across the screen and said, you passed, congratulations. And I broke down right there and just started boohooing. So the guy, every one of these facilities has a monitor. And so you take your paperwork where you did your math and everything up there, and I'm just boohooing, and he thought I was going into labor. He's like, "Ma'am, are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, no, 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 I'm fine. I'm just so relieved." And he was so stressed. I'm like,
Lord,
"I'm
he's
not
ready
going
to call the ambulance. He's like, we don't do babies here."
So, I started that way, and then, when my first job was at Coldwell Banker, and my daughter's in my carrier, and I'm walking in, I'm handing her off to other agents to hold so I can make phone calls and make copies and stuff like that. I'm like, "This is I I can't do this." And so, I stumbled across a lot sale, and it was so easy because I just did my homework, I put the sign in the yard, and I didn't have to go show anything, or I was like, "Okay, this might work." So I started, got on the GIS and started researching neighborhoods with vacant lots in it and started calling up the owners and said, "Hey, let me sell your lot for you." And so that's how it started. And then the tracks kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I found a mentor that was doing large tract land sales to developers and builders. And this person let me shadow them and take notes. And eventually we worked together on and off for years, doing properties together. And it took a long time because it's commercial, and I call myself a dirt dog sometimes, but I am a dirt dog. But mostly this is filled with men. It's like 99.9% men do all the dirt. And so I teach this in class, that don't just hand off an opportunity to the land guy in the office. I said, "This is what I'm gonna teach you. I'm gonna teach you how to research it properly." And so I started doing larger land tracts, and it took about 2 years for the developers and builders to get used to knowing that I'm a female, but I do know what I'm doing. And so now they call me. They call me all the time like, "Hey, you got anything? Or is anything coming up?" or whatever. So, that's how I got into doing dirt, strictly out of necessity, because changing diapers in the back of a minivan and going in and out of 20 houses a day just wasn't working for me. So, that's how I
Although
got into it, and then I fell in love with it, and I thought, "Man, this is easy." So
some of those agents in the office loved it when you brought that baby in for them to hold while you were doing
yes.
work. That was the least of their problems. They
Yep.
didn't think anyway.
They did. They would start coming around like, "You need me to hold Emma for you for a while?" My daughter's name is Emma, and she's their little carrier, and she was such a great kid. So they loved it, and she got exposed to a lot when she was young. But she doesn't wanna do sales. She wants to do dental work. She wants to be an orthodontist. So
Well,
I think I
that's
must have
still more true
damaged her.
though. She's gonna have to sell Invisalign versus the
Yep.
regular braces versus the clear brackets. So who knows? One day she might realize she should just come join her mama. But I gotta ask you a question. It's a top question that I get from viewers and listeners whenever somebody mentions a mentor.
Mhm.
You hit the jackpot with a mentor who said, "Come with me, learn, 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 and then join me." How did you create that relationship? How did you find the mentor? And most importantly, how did you talk them into allowing you as an inexperienced whippersnapper to come alongside them?
It was a blessing, honestly. I was in my broker's class getting to get my broker's license, and they were asking people to go around and tell about themselves and what they do and that sort of thing. And this person stood up and said, "Hey, I sell large tracts of land, and if anybody in here has land for sale, I'd like to know." And I'm like, "Oh, oh, oh, I got 4 acres." And she's like, "No, I mean, like, 50 to several hundred acres." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's not me." And so I approached her after class, and I was like, "Well, tell me what you do," because I was still a new agent and I didn't know a whole lot about the different levels of real estate and what you can specialize in and stuff like that. And she and I went to lunch, and she was telling me about it. And I said, "Well, do you need any help?" She said, "I could use an assistant." And I said, she said, "I can't pay you anything." She said, "But every time I have a meeting or something, if you wanna follow along and take notes, and then we can sit down and talk about it." And then she realized that I was truly dedicated to learning about land, and I was picking up on stuff really fast. And because I grew up in the country, it just made more sense to me. I grew up on raising, chickens and riding horses and dirt bikes and stuff like that. So being in the dirt is a very natural thing for me. And so, we did our first deal together, and it went super smooth, and she realized I was a very large, asset to her, because we had people have different strengths in real estate. Like, she was more of a look at what I've done, and I'm more of a how can I help you? So we complemented each other where she had the experience I didn't, but I was like, yeah, but I'm a research fiend. Let me help you. We'll go, what are you looking for? And I'll go find it. And so she did the stuff I didn't want to do, and I did the stuff she didn't want to do. And it was just a really, really good marriage for a long time. And then we go our separate ways. I think she's retired now. And I didn't know I was gonna write a book because 'cause I'm not an author. So, that's a whole nother story.
But you are now, so you can stop saying, "I'm not an author." I
I
was
know, I
one
know.
then, but I am one now,
Yeah,
so
I am an author now.
if y'all are noticing that Cheryl looks different, it's because in that beautiful editing moment, we had to make a technological adjustment because her power went wackadoodle. So now she's
Mhm.
just gonna show you she looks beautiful no matter whether she's on her regular camera or on her iPhone camera. She's the same beautiful Cheryl. So anyway, we were talking about the mentor side of things and the
Yeah,
fact that you have
yeah,
to pay dues. And I don't know that a lot of new licensees realize when they get into the business, you aren't necessarily going to make a big pile of money right out of the gate. But if you're willing to work for free for somebody who's going to pour priceless knowledge,
yeah.
that was so smart of you to say yes.
Yeah, well, I had to, beg a little bit, but I didn't mind. And that's what I teach my agents. When I teach class, I said, look, if you can, instead of giving your deal to the land guy, ask the land guy if you can refer it to him as long as he will walk you through every step of that process so you can learn and let him know that you can be an asset to him. I was down in Myrtle Beach area. I go down there because I'm a big shag dancer. And those of you who don't know what shag dancing is, in the Carolinas, the dance of the Carolinas is called the shag. And it's a fantastic dance, but I've been doing it for years. But I was down there going to an event, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to call some of the agents or the firms down here with about my book and tell them about my book and blah blah blah. So I called this guy up because in his name of his business he said something about homes and land. So I thought, oh, he'll be a perfect person. He will love my book. So I called him up and I said, hey, my name's Cheryl Sain. I'm a local Carolina girl, and I wrote a book about land and everything. And I said I would love to come and talk to you and your agents about the land thing. He said, why on earth would I want my agents to know about land? They give all the land to me. And I thought, oh my gosh.
Oh,
And I thought, you are the person that I don't need to talk to. I need to teach the agents, but the agents are eating this up. I'm promoting it. Another instructor, I don't know if you know John Fitzgerald, he says, Cheryl, your course is a professional development course that you just happen to get CE credit for. And I thought, I'm going to use that. That's awesome.
that
He
is a
said,
great
yeah,
angle for sure.
he loved it. He said and he chased me down to teach my class. He said, this is the best class I've ever seen in CE. And I was like, and it's the only one I do. I feel good.
Okay, so then knowing what you know about land and the residential side, and then educating residential agents and running into brokers like the one you did not mention by name, who was trying to hold information back from his agents to hold on to a piece of the market, which is craziness. But what do you wish residential agents knew about land? What is the biggest missing piece between the two different sectors of specialization?
Well, I show them the thing that I think is the biggest help for them is I have a chart that I develop and I show them the comparison of researching a house versus researching a piece of property. Houses sit on land. You need to be researching it regardless. And I show them, and it's a long list and it goes down here. And then where it starts to separate is when you go into the municipalities to learn about the zonings and stuff like that. And here you start going into home inspections. I said, so can you all see that we still have to research the same things? And it's like an aha moment for them. Like, oh, I said, you just got to learn a few more steps. And I said, and just be aware of the different things that you look for when you're doing land. Like a lot of them, they don't even understand topography, rollback taxes, the difference between water and sewer, well and septic, and the different septic systems and stuff like that. So they are just like, and I tell them when I start the class, I said, this is going to be the most education you will get in the 4 hour period. I said, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hydrant. I said, so be ready. And their minds are like, oh, at the end of the class, but they learn so much. I said, that's why I have the book. You can refer to the book, you can refer to the student manual. And they It never fails, Leigh, every time, and I'm so blessed, and thank you, Jesus, for this, but every time I do a class, somebody in that class comes up to me and said, "This is the best class I've ever had in real estate."
And that's
Because I think even you did. You did.
uh-huh. It's great. Well, I full disclosure, y'all, I have the book in my office for my agents because it's really good. And the link to her book is, of course, in the show notes for the episode. So if you're sitting there stressing out, don't worry, it's over in the show notes. And actually, if you leave a nice comment or share this episode, then we'll be giving away a free copy of the book to we'll draw a name out of the hat just because y'all need the book.
But hang on 1 second, I'll show you something else too. So I got this is a really good quick story. And then I really do have a crazy story I want to tell you.
Hang on,
Uh,
how did my iPad just follow you across the room? What setting do you have in it?
oh, you know what? It might be my Osmos camera. I
That
have an Osmos camera that follows me. I don't know how this does
followed you
this.
all the way across the room. I don't have that little tool. I guess I need one.
So this is the book for agents. 10 things
That's
you
the
need
one
to know
that's in
about
my
land.
office, the red one.
Yeah. So when I started teaching class, I because I'm not used to being in front of people like you are, and I would get really nervous before I would teach. So I would go early and I would like walk around the room and talk to the agent stuff to give myself. It was strictly selfish to give myself a time to calm down and kind of connect with a few people and stuff like that. Well, I found out that the general public was starting to show up in my classes, and I'm like, well, what firm are you with? And they're like, well, I'm not with a firm. I bought your book and I saw you teach class. I want to come. And I was like, really? And so,
Okay, this never happened to me in a million years. No random person has ever won.
yes, it would. You're awesome.
Yeah, but this is hilarious that you have strangers who are not licensed to come
Yeah,
into
no,
a
no. And this happened like several times. And so I thought, maybe I should repurpose that book to address the general public. Ta-da! So I spent about 6 months and I repurposed it for how to buy, sell, and profit with land, the realtor and what you need to know. And what I did was I went in there and I said, okay, if you got raw land, here's 2 pages of things you can do with that land to make money instead of letting it just sit there. And so, I released that one last September. And what now is happening is the agents are buying the green book to give to their clients that are looking for dirt. So it turned out to be a blessing as well, and it's doing well too. I don't really promote myself, and I don't go out there and do a lot of marketing. Although I'm getting ready to. I actually hired a
It'll
social
get better.
media guy.
Hey, you got your shirt on, you got your
Yeah,
caps.
yeah,
She's a shirt girl.
yeah. I'm ready to go. I'll tell you, I have about when I teach my class, I probably have 8 or 10 stories that I tell. But one of my favorite stories happened to me when I was a newer agent. May I tell it, or do you have more questions?
No, knock it out. I'm ready. I mean, I know my audience right now is enjoying the wild pathway we're taking, but watching my show for 11 years, they know this is how it goes. So I'm ready for some stories. Let's go. Tell me what's in your class.
Okay, so one of my favorite stories is the story called "Who Done It." And when I was new at real estate, and my daughter, she had finally gotten to a point where I would put her in an at-home daycare. And I went to pick her up one day, and the lady who was keeping my daughter said, "Cheryl, my husband and I purchased a lot a couple of years ago, but we've decided we don't want to build our dream home on it, and wondered if you would mind selling it." And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm trying. I made $12,000 the first year I did real estate, and I doubled it the next year. I'm on a roll, and so I get her. She gives me her survey. I know where the lot is. It's in a great location. It's an older neighborhood, and it's not far from my house. So it was just like magic. Everything was just like it's just a mile from my house. I know the neighborhood. It's going to be easy sale. So I get the listing done. And I call up a local builder that I knew who did some custom homes and told him where the lot was and the price. He goes, "Oh, I know exactly where that lot is. Yes, I'll take it." I said, "You don't even know the price." He said, "I know it'll sell in that neighborhood, full price." And I'm like, okay. So we go under contract. It's like I think it was an acre and a half or 2 acres. I actually was pulling up the paperwork on it the other day because I couldn't remember how big it was. And it was 2 acres. And so I get a call about 2 weeks into it, and his name was Mike. I think I changed his name in the book or whatever. And he said, "Cheryl, this is Mike." I'm like, okay, how's everything going? He goes, I'm down at the courthouse. He said, what are you trying to pull over on me? I'm like, my heart starts going, oh, I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, what are you talking about, Mike? He said, I'm looking at the plat, which is there's a difference between a plat and a plot, and a lot of agents don't even realize that. The plat is the big layout of the neighborhood, and the plot is one lot inside of it. He said, I'm looking at the plat. And on this lot, there is a debris burial pit. I said, what? And he said, where'd you get this survey? I said, well, I got it from the seller. And he said, well, this is where they buried all the debris when they were doing the neighborhood. I'm sorry, I need to look up a few here. And I said, oh my goodness. I said, you do not have to take it. We'll terminate it. Don't worry about it. He said, no, Cheryl. He said, let me see if your seller will give me permission to do some borings on the property. And borings is when they bring and I teach all this stuff in my class, is when they bring a big piece of machine and it's got the big pipe and it does these huge holes down into the dirt, is like 20, 30 feet. And it pulls up the soil so you can check to see what the soil is. And he said, see if she will give me permission to get a boring machine out there and to drill some holes, because this is an old debris burial pit and it may have been decomposed by now. And I said, okay, not a problem. So I call up my seller. I said, I have a quick question. We have a major problem here. And I said, where did you get your survey? Because me being a new agent, I just assumed she had gotten a new survey when she bought the lot, right? Well, we never assumed that. And she said, oh, that nice man that sold us that lot, he said he got a new survey and we didn't need to get one. There was no sense in us wasting money on that.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great way to save money.
Yeah. So I said, well, this is the problem. He wants to do borings. He's not going to terminate right now. I said, can he have permission to do the borings on the property? And she said, yes. Now, this is the funny part. She was a strong Christian. So every day after work, she would go out there and pray over that property the whole time.
So if you're in real estate and you're listening to this podcast or watching it and thinking, man, I need some more Leigh Brown answers in my life. Well, guess what, friends? I have a new program that is launching right now called Answers.Real Estate, where I will give you every bit of insight I have to help you grow your real estate business, help you better respond to consumers, to provide a more excellent real estate experience, so that the next time you land on crazy shit in real estate, you'll have a better solution to whatever you ran into. Answers.Real Estate. There are monthly plans available. You will love it. Get your coaching. Sign up with me today.
And I'm telling you, they didn't find one thing in the ground. It was the craziest thing. And so the soil was bad soil. There was bull tallow, which that's another thing I teach about. If you don't know what bad soils are, bull tallow and blackjack soil and stuff like that. But he found enough good soil on the property to build the house and continue moving forward. She had to reduce the price of the lot to cover his cost for the boring machine and all that stuff. It turned out to be great. There's a beautiful home on the site, but that's why the story is who done it? Who whited out the debris burial pit on the survey? And that's why surveys are so important to get done. It doesn't matter if someone did one last week. You just don't know what people are going to do, especially when they're desperate. So
even in a subdivision, because there is a misconception out there amongst even real estate professionals that you only need a survey if you're talking big parcels of land. But in the subdivision, people put up fence sheds and there's encroachments and there's burial pits and there's just stuff. And there's all these things that you really should check out before you sign on the dotted line. And it's not that you wouldn't buy it, but you have to know what you're buying. And that's the whole
that's
story
right.
here
That's right. It could be an inch off and you get that crazy neighbor that buys that property and then oh my gosh, it could be just a horrible lawsuit. And if you don't get the survey, the title insurance will eliminate that part of if there's any complaints or anything, you've got to get that survey.
coverage.
So
I got tickled the other day talking about surveys. I was looking at a parcel of land with one of my clients, and the agent remarks, and those of y'all that don't know, in most of the multiple listing services, you, the public, can see a lot of our information because it's shared through different websites through a process called syndication. But inside the multiple listing service, there's a little hidden section that is just for the paying members where we can share information
right.
another that may or may not be helpful in the public sphere. And in this one, the agent remarks had said that the well was on the neighbor's easement and that they would provide access to the well on the shared easement. And I was like, this has disaster written all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Not because you don't know it, because the agent fully disclosed it. The agent did nothing wrong. But what if that neighbor is delightful today and then passes tomorrow, and then the most rotten son-in-law ever moves in and cuts off access? I mean, y'all, there is such a reason to know where everything is located on
Mm-hmm.
Earth, because otherwise you're putting your life in the hands of the neighbor or what the person before didn't tell you. So, what else have you seen? What else is in your top list of things you've discovered in your story time? Because I know my listeners and viewers love this part.
Well, one of them is I'm teaching the agents, y'all have got to start looking at the deeds, because easements, if you're not looking at everything, let's say, for example, I use this for an example in my class. And you can cut me off anytime because I got a bunch of stories. But so let's say you're helping a client look for a piece of property that's got a nice backyard and they want to put a pool in it. And you don't check the deeds to see if there's any easements. And maybe there's an easement that, because you can't see easements not necessarily on top of the ground, it's probably under the ground. So I'm trying to teach agents to read the deeds. You're not an attorney, but if you become familiar with the verbiage, you might notice where it says easement on here. I don't know why my thing's doing that. Those are my angel wings.
It's like,
I can't wear them. If I can't wear them, I'm going to have them in the room.
hey, look, if you're listening to this on audio, just go watch the video because you're missing all the fun. I'm just saying. Cheryl's camera is entertaining. Anyway. So, yeah,
but anyway, I'm trying to teach agents to start reviewing deeds before they even put an offer on a property, because there may be something catastrophic on the deed that would prevent you from, moving forward. Another thing too is, and I learned this from doing large real estate tracts of land. So when I put a property under contract with a large builder, the very first thing they do is pull a title search. And when do we do title searches? When agents are selling houses. When does the attorney do it?
Last possible second. They don't want to have to get charged for it, so nobody does title till the last minute.
Yeah. So I'm teaching agents, and once I explain it to them, it's like they have an aha moment. I said, look, educate your buyer. Get the title search done at the very beginning of the transaction. When you go under contract, go ahead and talk to the attorney and say, hey, let's go ahead and do a title search. Because if there's anything catastrophic on that, you've got time to correct it, or you can go, oh, no, we're walking away from this one. Because you don't want to spend all the time on inspections and all this other stuff just to realize you can't even close on the property. And even if it's correctable, it could be weeks away from being corrected. And then if you've sold a house and you need to move in, where are you going to stay? So,
well, and the record for y'all who are thinking about land in North Carolina. So we're North and South Carolina, but you're talking a couple $100 for the title search. And a lot of people are pinching pennies on land purchases and house purchases when you're talking about the biggest investment you're probably making. So there's a reason that the big investors, like Cheryl's mentioning, do theirs right up front. Because what if you had an issue with somebody's will at some point, or there was a divorce that went sideways, or a former mortgage loan that never got canceled down at the courthouse? There's lots of things. Yeah.
I was like, oh gosh, yes, I've seen that
chase around, and you want time to go chasing it so that you can fix it, because most of it's fixable if you have a minute to fix it. But when you're in a hustle, that's when it's actually harder to fix it, because now the other side is like, what's going on over there? They get very suspicious if you're hurrying, and it could be solved so quickly up front. But I'd love to know if you've encountered any insane stories around title work.
Not yet, but I will tell you something, and you may know this. I just had it yesterday again. So I don't know what's going on, but over the past probably 6 months, I have had probably at least 4 or 5 people say, why do I not get a title for my house? I get a title for my car when it's paid off, but I don't get a title for my house. So I called a title attorney and I said, can you explain this to me so I can explain it easier to, other people? He said, well, you get a, you get a deed to your property. That is showing your ownership. And then you get a deed of trust if you have a mortgage on it. And I didn't know this, he said sometimes when someone pays off their mortgage, the mortgage lender will send a notice to the courthouse. They may not send one to you to let you know it's satisfied. And I said, really? Why would they not send it to? He said, sometimes they just don't. And I'm like, I have never heard that. He said, so your deed is your proof of ownership. But I had a client just last night call me up. Their mother passed away. They had, a half a dozen rental properties, and they're having a time with it. And they're like, shouldn't there be a title for these properties? And I said, I don't know where this is coming from. I said, I'm going to have to do something.
I know where it's coming from, because have you noticed there's more and more advertisements on podcasts and on news programs for title lock policy?
Oh, yes,
They're
yes,
talking
yes.
about title theft. I bet that's where that's coming from. And actually, I had one of the companies reach out to me wanting to be a sponsor on the program. I've got to go run my test on my properties and make sure nobody has stolen my title down at the courthouse, because it kind of spooked me out. But I bet that's where it's coming from. It's people that are listening to commercials. So on the bright side, they're listening to something that is not selling them pharmaceuticals. So I guess we can be glad that they're asking about the title on their property, because they should pay attention to it, especially if you've got an estate property that's likely been paid off for years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But we recently paid off one of our investment properties, and Wells Fargo had the note on it. And I had to call and email to get them to send me the proof that the lien
That it had been satisfied.
because they just closed the account. And when I called,
I think that's
said,
crazy.
congratulations, your loan's paid off. I'm like, that's great. Thank you for putting that in the voicemail, but I'd like to have it in writing.
Exactly. Yeah, I need proof in writing. Yeah. So the biggest thing I'm running across now, speaking of crazy stories, which is really sad, is all the scams, and they address that at our meeting.
Please talk about this, because residential agents are really afraid of this because they don't have the knowledge that you have. So give a quick description to our listeners and viewers about the
Yeah.
It's
If you'll give me 1 second, I'm going to grab something and read it to you, because this will really help your listeners. I'm not kidding. Hang on. It's not out of my book, but it's something I read through my class.
I almost love her. Just put something in the comments, because she's delightful.
Okay. Yep. And if my iPad dies, we just don't have to fight that old devil.
Your iPhone next. That's the third route.
I know. That would be wild, wouldn't it? Also, too, during my classes, which this is super important, I show future land use maps and stuff like that, so that the agents can understand. Most of them don't know what that is. Okay, this was actually I called up. This is an article from North Carolina Association of Realtors, and they explain this very, very, very good. And I actually had this happen to me after a class a couple of weeks ago. But I'll tell you, I'm going to read this to you first, and it's happening more and more and more. It's called fake seller scams. It's real. It's happening. And what can we do? And I read this to the class, and they love it, because some of them have not experienced it, but more and more in classes they are. But agents are receiving phone calls from individuals interested in listing a piece of vacant land for sale. They tell stories about how they acquired the land, changed their minds about keeping it, and now they want to sell. Often they are currently living on the West Coast, which makes it impossible for them to meet at the property. Most cases of seller impersonation fraud involve vacant land or vacant homes that the property owner does not currently occupy. So first, let's look at the red flags. Number one, be aware of the ones that only want to communicate through text message or email. Number two, they want to sell the property quickly. Number three, they want to list at below market value. Number four, the seller only wants cash buyers. Number five, the seller is requesting the due diligence fee to be made payable to a name other than the seller. Number six, the seller is unable to answer questions about the property that any legitimate property owner would know. Number seven, they refuse to set up a video call with the agent. So this is called seller impersonation fraud. Now, how can we protect ourselves as agents from this? Number one, we need to verify that the prospective client is the same person who's identified in the most recently recorded deed to the property and online records for the county's tax office. But they're even getting trickier with that, Leigh. They're doing all these fake IDs and stuff. Number two, ask prospects to send them a government-issued photo ID. Agents should verify that the ID is current and matches the name on the deed. and that the address matches the address in the tax records. Number 3, you can send a confirmation letter to the property owner at both the property address and the mailing address in the tax bill. That's a biggie. That's how they're catching them. The letter can explain that the agent has been asked to list the property for sale and is sending the letter as a fraud prevention measure. Number 4, speak to the neighboring property owners for verification. Because a lot of times, if you've got a big piece of property, your neighbors are keeping up with what's going on.
Yeah, because they want it.
Yeah, because they want it, or they don't want somebody else to have it. No, or they don't want you to sell it. Number 5, agents should ask the seller for documents that only the actual property owner would have. Example, a settlement statement from when they purchased the property, or title insurance policy when they purchased the property, or a survey. If the seller cannot produce any of these documents, the agent should refuse to enter into a listing agreement or terminate any agreement that has been signed. And that actually happened to me right after a class. A guy reached out to me from Texas and said he had a lot in Tennessee. I said, well, you know, I'm in North Carolina, right? And he said, well, he looked me up and he said, well, you specialize in land and lots. I thought you'd be the best person to help me. I said, not a problem. I said, send me all your information. I said, I can refer you to another agent. And so he sent me some stuff. And I said, well, this is great, but now my firm requires a photo ID of you. And this is all in email, right? And so he emails me back and he said, obviously, we have a trust issue here. I won't be needing your services. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, for saving me from that one.
Seriously, because it's a mess. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's too easy to make a counterfeit ID. One of my agents got tangled up and he sent a fake ID. She did a Zoom call with him, but it was dark and you couldn't see his face. So the lighting was completely he was like a shadow in a mob witness kind of protection thing.
Mm-hmm.
So she thought he was real till we get halfway down the road. And then finally we hear from the real seller because they heard from a neighbor. And this is happening everywhere, y'all. And I got to give a high five to the North Carolina realtors for absolutely staying on top of it and putting good information out there. And by the way, if you are in real estate, this is why you should read the publications that come from your state and local association, because it often does have really timely, good information that can save you money and time getting tangled up in a fraudulent situation. But it's horrifying how very smart people decide to be scammers instead of being productive members of society. Because if you could work, why not do something legit? Buy your book and profit off land.
Well, I'll tell you another thing too, Leigh, is and this happened in a class last week. An agent told me, and she said, I'm glad you talked about that. She said, but let me tell you what's happening. Some of the agents don't want to believe that it's a scam. Like one agent had it listed, the other agent had brought a buyer. She did her research. She realized it was a scam. The girl did not want to hear it. So she had to go to the girl's broker and say, look, y'all are getting ready to make a big mistake here. And the agent just did not want to believe it. And I'm like,
that's so sad because she needed a check that bad.
I guess. I don't know. But, it's just not worth it. That just would follow you the rest of your life. But those are a couple of things. And I have a ton of stories that I tell out through there. Stupid things I've done, made mistakes by sending information I didn't research beforehand to one of my biggest builders.
Well,
Yeah, but I'm teaching them. I'm like, look, I'm just like y'all. So here's the mistakes I've made. Don't make these mistakes. So, but I love doing it. Another thing is I'm teaching them that, you remember, Leigh, when I know you've been doing this a long time too. We used to go to closings and we would get our tag at closing.
Like South Carolina, you still can. I just want to point that out.
I know. And that's what I'm teaching the South Carolina agents. You tell those attorneys do not release any money to anybody until the deed's recorded.
South Carolina, they're not a race state in South Carolina. We're a race state in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. So they're listening to it. I said, it's getting to be a crazy environment selling real estate. I said, we need to just be more careful about this stuff. So,
amen, about every aspect of real estate. And by the way, that means if you're one of my consumer listeners, that you're like the one that sneaks into Cheryl's class to go learn about land. I know y'all enjoy this show. We, as practicing professionals, really, really, really wish you would interview better when you're selecting a real estate professional. Make sure they know there's land scams going on, and make sure that they're talking about surveys and that they give you the pros and cons so that you decide when you want to buy it, and make sure that they're thinking about the process thoughtfully and they're not just hustling, because you do need some hustle to survive in real estate, but you don't have to be so fast that you're missing really important details. And so I
Oh, yeah.
cut you off the show, Cheryl. Since we do have a lot of viewers and listeners who are not real estate professionals, they are normal people who just love real estate. What is a question you wish the public would ask their agent if they're looking to sell or purchase land? How could they sniff out an expert? What's a good tell?
Just question the agent on, have you sold land before? Have you sold raw land or larger tracts of land? If you have, can you give me a little bit of history about what you've done, and what should I as a consumer be looking for? Because people are, they're sharp now. They're going out and driving, and I tell everybody, go out and drive the area you like. If you see something, let's look at it. But honestly, and I hate to say this because it's a plug for my book, but if you've got a client, tell them to get this, because we love working with educated sellers. It makes our job so much easier because they may ask questions that we forgot to ask, ourselves. And they may find research on their own, because there's some super savvy sellers out there. One other thing too, that is not automatically done. Surveys are not automatically recorded at the courthouse. And that's really important when you are helping your clients order a survey. I would request, and you need to do it when you're ordering the survey, that the surveyor record this at the courthouse. They don't automatically do that, and it's extra money. So I like that.
Much extra money. It's only a few bucks. It's not crazy.
Yeah, no. It's not crazy at all. But that would be I guess it would be that. What kind of experience do you have? Could you tell me a little bit about that, and make sure that they've got experience in looking for what you're doing. And if not, do they have someone that can help them? Do you have a mentor, or do you have a land person that can help you through this if we get in a jam and can't figure it out?
Well,
So,
that's exactly what I was going to say to all my early career people out there. If you follow Cheryl's example and have a great mentor, then you
mhm,
can honestly answer that consumer and say, I don't personally have the experience, but I have a highly
mhm.
seasoned mentor who will walk side by side with me. And I would think as a consumer, that might even be better, because then you're going to get two for the price of one. So, Cheryl, if somebody wants to reach out to you about booking your land class for their Rome
Mhm.
association, or they want to talk to you about the book, or they just want to hang out with you because they think you're delightful and they want to learn how to shag dance, how's the best way to find you?
And pickleball too. I love pickleball.
I'm not even old enough to play pickleball. I think that's for the next generation up.
Yeah, I have agents call me all the time. My number is 704-309-5067. And my email, which you're welcome to email me, is my name, Cheryl Sain, CHERYLSAIN @gmail.com.
And of course, as y'all know, all of Cheryl's contact information, including a link to purchase her
Mhm.
book, is in the show notes for this episode. And if you leave me a comment or share this episode with somebody in a shareable format where we can spot it, we're going to draw a name to give a free copy of Cheryl's book. And actually, we'll probably send a red and a green, so that once you win the red book, you can give away the green book. So how about we do it
Yep.
that way?
Yeah,
Say something
that's
nice
what.
about Cheryl. Let's get ourselves educated so we can take better care of our consumers.
Thank you so much for having me, Leigh. This is delightful. And I'm telling you, if your listeners don't know you, you have got to be one of the smartest, wittiest people I know. I loved taking your class when I took it last fall. And I was like, dang, she is so, because you think differently than the normal person. Like you can catch a phrase or an idea and you're like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, that was good. That was good. That was a great class. I hate you're not doing those anymore, because that was
I'm
fun.
glad that you came, and I'm glad that you also helped me demonstrate that just because we are realtors in the same marketplace, that does not mean that we cannot absolutely support each other in growing and selling and making the business better. So you should also know, everybody out there, this business is only cutthroat and ugly if you turn it into that. It can also be supportive and amazing, because I know that it's better for real estate in this area when we have professionals like you, Cheryl, out there doing a great thing for
Thank
not
you.
just your clients, but for all the agents who encounter you in your class. So thank you for what you're
You're
doing.
so sweet.
I'm
Well,
so
I do
I just
promote
simply
everyone. I'm sorry. I was going to say I do promote other people that teach land because I want the agents to learn as much as they possibly can. I don't have an ego to fulfill or anything like that. I just want to help people be better agents
I
and make
forgot
better
to ask
decisions.
you, did you go to the RLI conference in Tucson in March?
I did not. They were texting me from that conference like, "Why aren't you out here now?"
I know my
But
friends there were texting me too, and I was like, I wanted to go, but then I had a conflict. So I guess you and I both have to go to the next land conference because we should have gone.
I know. Maybe we can room.
Cut the cost. So I'm gonna say from your lips to God's ears, and we just committed to it online. So let's watch the dates, and we'll go to RLI together.
Thank you so much. I know I'm gonna shut up, I promise. But I want to tell everybody this. So when I found you, you do because I'm a veteran, you do the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of your classes. And that is one thing that I took from you, and I do it at every single class. And I'm telling you, people are like, thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that. And I do that. I wanted to give you kudos and credit for that because that is so dear to my heart. Thank you, girl. And thank you for having me. I hope you have a great day and enjoy your summer coming up.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody out there, thank you for sticking with us. Make sure you hit the bell to subscribe, watch some other episodes, and come back and see us next time.
By the way, friends, don't miss my brand new coaching program at answers.realestate, where you can have access to Leigh Brown, submit your questions, have them answered, meet like-minded professionals, have an entire library to help you build your business no matter what happens in the market. Get signed up today. I promise you'll be glad you did. So if you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, and catch another amazing episode by clicking above. Crazy Shit in Real Estate is also available in all of your normal podcast apps. So if that's where you like to hang out, go find me, click subscribe, and most importantly, leave me a review that says you think I'm awesome, my guests are awesome, or this content is just exactly what you were looking for. And then, by the way, if there's something you need, you want to learn about something, you can comment below anytime. You can also send me a direct message if you need to remain anonymous. No judgment. But anyway, I'll only judge if you forget to subscribe and click. I'll see you next time.